Hello and welcome to the Swan Song Project Podcast. My name is Ben Buddy Slack and I'm the founder of the Swan Song Project. We're a charity that helps people facing the end of their lives to write and record their own original songs. This podcast features a range of songwriters where we talk about music and grief. We talk about one of their songs, how they wrote it, and we also talk about a song that's meaningful to them in some way relating to bereavement. This episode features Katie Spencer and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, today I'm here with Katie Spencer. Thanks for joining me, Katie.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's lovely.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Looking forward to talking songwriting with you. Has anyone seen these podcasts before? We do them in three sections. First, we're going to have one of my guest songs. And they're going to tell us a little bit about how they wrote that. Section 2, Katie's going to share with us a songwriting tip that might be useful for new aspiring songwriters. And then Section 3, we're going to talk about a song that's meaningful to Katie in some way relating to bereavement. So I'll pass you over now, and would you like to introduce your song for us, please, Katie?
Sure, yeah. This is a kind of a fairly new song. It's called Shalyn Road, and yeah, it's about my grandma. So yeah, it's called Shalyn Road.
Plainclothes police are breathing down the necks of those who are creeping, and I'm driving away from Saturday night, and I'm going past the top of your street again tonight. And the streetlights, they flicker on and off, on and off, on and on. It's the Shannon Road, silent as gone. Someone's burning his old wardrobe on the green, and all the kids are laughing barefooted on the grass, and the cold is coming in. It's September again. Streetlights, they flicker on and off, on and off, on and on. It's the Shannon Road, silent as gone. On the tree in the garden that was yours are all falling to the floor, 'cause you're not here anymore. You're not here anymore. And the streetlights, they still flicker on and on and on and on.
Okay, great stuff. So that was Shannon Road by Katie Spencer. So what can you tell us about writing that one, Katie? You say it was about your grandma.
Yeah, so Shannon Road is a place in Hull. I grew up on the East Coast, and Hull was the nearest city to where I lived. And yeah, my grandma was, she lived on this council estate called Longhill Estate in Hull for most of her life, and my dad grew up there. It was that kind of thing. And basically I got thinking about this house where my grandma used to live, and got thinking about my grandma, much more than I already was doing, because we moved house. We kind of moved out of my family home, me and my folks. That we'd lived there for 18 years, and it was kind of in the countryside. To Holderness for a year or so, but then we back to the sea, which meant that I was kind of driving past the top of this street where my grandma used to live, and I was driving past there way more often, because it was the main route to get into the Hull from where I lived, and I just kind of really wanted to document the memories that I'd kind of had when I kind of used to go and visit my grandma, because the place where she lived was kind of not very well regarded by people who live in Hull. It's kind of, I think everywhere's got a place like that where, people who live there kind of look down upon it, maybe because of the people who live there or whatever. But I kind of never really found it to be a negative place. I loved it as a kid. There's all kinds of stuff, and every weekend, and just really lovely people who lived there. And so as I kept kind of driving past the top of the street where my grandma used to live, I just kind of started thinking about all these different memories that I had of the time and the place, spending time there as a kid. And there are kind of two big things in the song that I used to symbolise like the passing of my grandma, really. She had this great big apple tree in the back garden, which was kind of it's quite rare, really, for like a council estate. Like, the garden was amazing, and it's just a big memory of my time there. And this great big apple tree kind of signifies like all my favourite things about my grandma, like the generosity and just her inspiration, really, because she used to kind of make these amazing pies and crumbles out of the apples that grew on it. And so yeah, I kind of use that as a vehicle to kind of portray the fact that my grandma doesn't live there anymore, obviously. And yeah, kind of the other one is like the street lights. I lived in the countryside with my parents, and we probably had like 2 street lights in the whole 2 miles of the village. And going to see my grandma was kind of, I don't know, really fun as a really young child to just watch them, when they're like turning on in the late afternoon in winter, turning on that like gorgeous orange colour. So I kind of use that to portray it as well. So yeah, that's what the song's about. Yeah,
it's a beautiful song, and I really like it. It was really nice hearing you describe all these nice memories there. They kind of resonate a lot with my nice memories of my grandma as well. But the zoning in on those specific details are what makes song. I love when songs do that. It's kind of you've chosen these few really specific features and kind of pulled them into it, and it just makes the song feel so real and relatable in those ways. I really like to see Shannon Road Silent Disco, isn't it? Was that a real part of it?
Yeah, I mean, it was just like a play on words, really, because I remember just like people like dancing down the street, 'cause it's just a really like kind of random place, and maybe funny or whatever, or physical people who kind of lived in the area, but they were always really happy. And I just remember people kind of like kids just dancing past. Just remember dancing in the garden. It's just a sort of play on words, really, because of the like flickering street lights above, and kind of just, I don't know, dancing around. I guess that was a play on words, really.
Yeah, that's really nice. It really kind of again, it just like it's one of those songs that paints such a rich picture of the whole setting, and it's really really powerful. Is that, you say it's quite a new song, and has it been different to how you write other songs, writing it, like say about your grandma and these specific memories? Is that something you use a lot in your songwriting, or do you have different methods that you go about?
Yeah, I have different methods, and it's certainly a new method for me, really. It's probably one of the first kind of storytelling kind of songs that I've written, and I definitely want to do more of that. But I try and kind of, I guess I set out with that kind of idea in mind, because I knew I wanted to kind of document that specific time, whereas a lot of my other songs are just kind of, I guess, even more focused in, and in some ways when something's so focused it can be really broad as well. So like I think a lot of my other songs are, they bring in a lot of landscapes and a lot of imagery that kind of run alongside a specific memory, and I think that maybe gives it a wider context in some ways, because it's kind of, these images of landscapes can be related to anyone or any time, whereas Shannon Road was the first song I wrote when I was actually thinking about a specific moment in time, I suppose. It sounds a bit contradictory, but yeah.
Yeah. There's a Leonard Cohen quote, which is one of my favourites, of, I think he said, and somebody was asking him about that, about the specificity of his songs, and I think he said, your most specific answer will often be our most universal one. In Leonard's beautifully articulate way. Yeah, and it's a real skill as well. I think a lot of people think about, if you're trying to write a song that's gonna, that lots of people will relate to try and go for the lowest common denominator and try and make it really broad. Whereas a lot of times, as you say, the opposite is what works. When you make it specific, then people can relate to the specifics of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think I always try and like think about like all five of the senses in some ways, and try and really, and then I think everyone can kind of relate to that as well. Like you were saying, it's when you I think it's because it probably, people can kind of relate to it on a personal level.
Yeah. So we're on a little bit of issue again with this internet, but I think we're getting most of it. We'll move into section 2 now then. So this is where I ask my guests to share with us a songwriting tip that might be useful for new or aspiring songwriters. So what would your tip be for us, Katie?
I think something that I've only used a couple of times actually, but I found it really useful both times, was writing down maybe 5 or 10 or however many titles that you like the sound of. So if you kind of just write 1 to 5 on a sheet of paper, and then just kind of think about 5 titles that kind of sound good or interesting, or like you can kind of make something out of the title. Just write all of them down, and then base the song just off of those few words, kind of thing. I found that really useful. And I think just another thing is just to kind of always be in the songwriting mindset. I think I go in kind of phases of kind of writing a bunch of songs all at the same time, and then nothing for quite a while. And I think throughout that time it's still important to sort of always be in the mindset of realising that a song can come out at any moment, really. Definitely think about when we're in lockdown, kind of every moment is like make sure you've got a piece of paper or something, or a phone you can write it down with, really.
Yeah, that's really good. Do you have any thoughts about how you, when you're listing titles, is there anything particular that you'd look for in a title, or like is there any any ways that you would choose song titles? It's kind of an interesting thing, isn't it, of where, like, I always think if you're doing it the other way of writing and then picking out the title of, sometimes it's obvious and it's the clear chorus line, and sometimes it's not as obvious, but it's I would find it interesting of what you choose, how you choose your title, and I guess going from that way of writing titles first, is there anything particular that you'd like think about or look for when you're writing titles?
I think, yeah, I mean, like like you just mentioned, I find it kind of quite difficult to choose a title from a song, and so turning it on its head was kind of, I suppose, easier to get the title, obviously, but yeah, I think I just try and, well, I mean, an example of it would be like I wrote a song called Hello Sun based off that process, and I guess with Hello Sun I was trying to create a play on words again, because it's actually hello sun, like in the sky, and it's kind of celebrating the just celebrating the amazing seasons and things, and that kind of longing for different seasons, and kind of living in the UK and experiencing that, but it could also mean like hello sun, so I think with that I was trying to get a play on words and then write the song based off of that idea. So I was kind of celebrate the seasons and the changing of the seasons, but also kind of write the song as though I could be singing a song to a son, kind of thing, like a young man or whatever. So yeah, I hope that's kind of answered the question.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it was quite a tricky question as well, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it does seem like an interesting one. Yeah, the idea of how you go, like say starting with the title and then the different avenues that you might go about building from there, does seem like a really interesting way of, and it probably pulls you in different directions than you might otherwise from other starting points you might go. So yeah, it sounds like a really
Definitely.
good one. Good stuff. Yeah, thanks, Katie. So let's move into section 3 now. So this is where I guess my guests to share with us a song that's meaningful to them in some way relating to bereavement. So what I do here is I'll put the link for the song in the description. So if you're watching this video or listening to this and you want to go and check it out, you can do. I'll ask Katie to introduce the song, and then so if you're watching this, you want to pause it, go listen to that, and come back. We're going to have a bit of a chat about it. So which song did you choose for us here, Katie?
I chose a really old school song. It's called With These Hands, and I think it was written by somebody else, but the version that I kind of really remember is by Eddie Fisher.
Great stuff. So the link for that will be in the description. So why did you choose this song for us, Katie?
So I tried to kind of think about my grandma with all of this, really. So this is the song that it was one of my grandma's favourite songs. I think her and my granddad kind of really held this song really close to their hearts, and it's just a really kind of straight up beautiful song, really, and it just kind of captures, I guess, that kind of romance and atmosphere for like my grandma and granddad, and it was one of her favourite songs, and it kind of got played at her funeral, and it kind of just really sums up my grandma again. I think she was really one of the most generous people that I've kind of come across, and she was really kind, and I think the words in the song really sum that up, because like with these hands, she'll provide for everybody, kind of thing, and she was a really kind of loving person, so it kind of sums it all up for me, really, and it captures that moment in time, because I was kind of 15 when she passed away, and I was there when it happened as well, and it kind of was a big sort of naturally a big moment in my life, and that song just kind of is a soundtrack to that, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing it. It's a beautiful song, and it's really nice that I think with this section a lot of time it's might be songs that were someone's favourite, but don't represent them in a way. So it's really nice that it's a song that was her favourite, but also kind of feels like it's relevant to her character. Yeah, it's a beautiful song. I hadn't heard it before, but it's very powerful.
Yeah, it's just a kind of, I don't know, it really, she was born in the 20s, and it kind of really captures that sort of, when she was a young person, it would capture that time, I suppose. Yeah,
it's beautiful. Great stuff. Yeah, well, thanks a lot for coming on and sharing your stories and tips with us, Katie. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks very much for having me. It's been a real kind of special thing to kind of delve into this kind of stuff, so thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've been really kind of like moved by the generosity of all the guests so far, really, of sharing such things, and I know the listeners have been appreciating it. So yeah, thank you. Are you got anything much coming up over lockdown, and any releases or live streams or things you want to mention?
Yeah, I'm doing a handful of live streams this weekend. I'm doing one for Beverley Fringe Festival, which will be really nice. And then I've just started up a Patreon account, so I'm going to be sharing all kinds of different videos and just documenting what I'm getting up to at the moment. And I'm hopefully going in the studio in a couple of weeks to continue working on our album, which is really exciting. So yeah.
Great stuff. I'll put all the links in the description so everyone can check out your pages and follow you on Patreon and everything as well.
Thanks.
And look forward to the new release.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Right, thanks a lot, Katie, and thanks for tuning in, everyone. We're back with another episode soon.